Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 100th episode of Finding Brave. I am Kathy Caprino here. I'm so excited to be here with you on this milestone of a day. I kind of can't even believe it that, you have this little twinkle in your eye of an idea. Hey, wouldn't it be cool to start a podcast, and wouldn't it be cool to call it Finding Brave? And what would we talk about and what would we do? And then we're talking about 100 episodes later. Eee! So, first of all, big hug and thank you to all of you who listen in, who give me comments and feedback and write a review. And if you're liking the podcast and haven't written a review, I'd be so grateful for a positive review on Apple Podcasts. That would be just amazing. Um, and, just the whole process of doing this and putting yourself out in the world and engaging with people and doing your best to give them content that they like, that they find enjoyable and entertaining and useful. It's just an amazing experience. So, what I want to talk about today for anyone who's considering a podcast or working to be a thought leader, or an influencer, or producing content that's helpful, I want to talk about the 5 lessons from reaching this milestone of 100 episodes. There's a lot of learning. There's more than 5 lessons, that's for sure. Whee! But I'm going to try to distill it down and share my view. Now, little caveat, I'm going to share things that other podcasters would never say and don't believe. So, you know me by now. I'm going to tell it to you the way I see it. And I'm also not going to be snarky, maybe, but I'm going to share some things that I see that are sending people in the wrong direction and kind of misleading them and misguiding them in terms of, woohoo, it's so easy to do a podcast and hit 1 million downloads. And I'm going to tell you what I've seen. Doesn't mean it's set in stone, doesn't mean it's absolute fact, but it's my experience. And a lot of this comes from being in the media for how long have I been writing on Forbes now with 32 million views? Since September 2011. So I am working with a lot of the most celebrated, renowned writers and thought leaders and trainers and speakers. And so a lot of what I share also is just not my thought, but what we're talking about in terms of the challenges and the highs and the lows of being a thought leader and putting out content. All right, so let's talk. The very first thing I want to say here is, and you're going to hear me talk about a podcast as well as life because they're inextricably linked. Oh, and excuse my, if you're watching it, sun comes streaming in my apartment here, and it's hard for me to block it out. All right. I love one of the most instrumental books I've ever read is The Energy of Money by Maria Nemeth. It's like a Bible for life. It is so fantastic, and it talks about your relationship with money and how it was formed, but it's so much more than that. It's about how you approach life, how do you get things done, monkey mind, which gets in the way of getting things done. It's really fantastic. If you haven't read it, read it. Read it over the holidays or anytime you are listening to this. But what she talks about, and she's a heck of a lot more eloquent about this than I am, but she talks about the idea that when you have an idea like, ooh, I'm going to start a podcast, or I'm going to write a book, or, I'm going to develop a program, because it's in the metaphysical world, because it's just an idea, the energy is so light and so enlivening. It's just lightness. Then when you move forward to bring this idea into life, the energy is very different. It's dense energy. It's hard. So anyone who says doing something like this for 100 episodes is woohoo, easy breezy, they're just full of nonsense. It's not easy breezy. It's work. But if you do some of these things that I'm going to talk about, it's very enlivening and rewarding and valuable, and you get a lot out of it. It's not just giving and beleaguering yourself and exhausting yourself. You get so much out of it. So part of this is understanding what is it that you want to get out of it. But the idea is this: be prepared. If you think it's easy easy in a snap and it doesn't require any time and energy, you're going to be devastated. And so a lot of what I talk about in life, work, career coaching, leadership training, your expectations, your frame of mind, your mindset are going to shape your emotions and how you're approaching this and how you're operating it. So make sure that your expectations are realistic about this. Now, can miracles happen? Can something unbelievable happen? And you can, like, truthfully, on my Forbes blog, I do think a miracle happened. And I think it literally, I'm going to be a little woo woo here. My dad had just passed away, and somebody told me um, this was in 2013. He passed away, but somebody told me, you watch, um, you're going to get this amazing gift from your father who you adored and he adored you since he's passed away. Look for it. And I thought, well, that's a beautiful idea. Okay. And it was, I think, not even 6 months later that a post of mine on Forbes went viral. 8 million views it's at now. And it's so fascinating to watch something go viral. It's just like nothing else. Like you post it and, 100 views. That's nice. Oh, 1,000. And then you're watching it as it's 1,000 to 10,000 in 5 minutes. It's so crazy. So can these things happen with your podcast, with your book? Sure, they can. But if that is your expectation, you're going to have a hard time. Because so often we don't hit that kind of viral buzz. So do it not to be a viral sensation. Do it because it fits all these other things we're going to talk about. All right. So that was lesson number 1, but that's a bonus. Now we're going to start with the top 5 lessons. So the first thing is, it's an investment. It's a serious investment of, maybe it's not going to be costly for you, but I have a team, for instance, a wonderful podcast editor, Matt Mawhinney, who's just the best. Pod Assist is his company. He has a great team. So there's an editor. I have a social media and kind of communications expert, Amy, who helps me. So very rarely do you do these things alone. If you're really going to get it out there, you have help. So it's a serious investment of money, of time, of commitment, of patience, of planning. So you don't want to jump in, woohoo, let me do a podcast, without understanding what's involved. In fact, I did not do this with my first podcast, which I did with Mofall. But I did do this much more with this Finding Brave podcast. I did a business plan. What is it? What am I doing here? What is the goal? How am I going to reach that goal? What's it going to cost? What are the expenses? What's going to come in? What do I need from this? I did a whole business plan for this. So I just want to give you some statistics, and we're going to link to where I got these numbers below. But this is what I've read. There are an estimated 700,000 active podcasts right now in 2019. There are 29 million episodes in 100 languages. So thing number 1 here, there's a lot of competition. You're launching into a world where there's a lot going on. And a lot of these podcasts, my son, for instance, listens to a sports podcast, Barstool, I think he calls it. There's a million different podcasts. There's celebrities, there's sports, there's every niche you can imagine. There's cooking, there's dog sitting, there's everything you can imagine. So you're launching into a very full arena. That's something important to know. I was looking up some interesting stats on, they call it pod fade, the fail rate. And one article, and again, I'll link to it below, from Amplify Media, says that the fail rate seems to be over 50%. There's so many interesting stats. I also looked at how many downloads makes a successful podcast. And this is from Small Biz Genius. Again, the link is below. So this is what they say: the most successful podcast episode had around 50,000 downloads in only 30 days. Well, I'd like to know what that one is. I don't have the answer. If you know, let me know. Write me. An episode with 9,000 downloads, now we're talking about one episode, earns a place in the top 5% of podcasts. And if you get 3,400 downloads of an episode, that puts you in the top 10 of all of these podcasts, 700,000 active podcasts. However, the average podcast racks up 141 downloads in the first 30 days. I'm going to be transparent and share with you the average the average episode now for me is anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 downloads. I think we are at something like 115,000 downloads since it started January of 2018. So I'm proud of that. That's a lot of downloads. That's a lot of people listening. Of course, numbers are important, and of course, I want to reach more and more people. But I want you to understand these numbers. And, because I'm an author and a writer and I'm looking at stats are important, but we can't be obsessed about those as the only benchmark for success. I know so many people have written their first book. And I made this mistake 10 years ago with my book, Breakdown Breakthrough, paid a lot of money for PR, and then it was featured in the Wall Street Journal. And I thought, woohoo, best-selling author. Well, not necessarily. It can be featured in the New York Times, and it's not necessarily going to be a New York Times bestseller. So expectations is everything. But understand that it's a serious investment to get this thing off the ground. So what you need to think about, and I'm looking at my notes here, what is the return on investment that you want? Do you, and a lot of people, I'm on YouTube and have some activity going on there, and I take ads there. Truthfully, I'm not monetizing that in any way, shape, or form. So a lot of people think, woohoo, I'll get on YouTube and I'll make $1,000 a month. You have to have millions of views going on to monetize in a big way. So think about what your return on investment is. Think about what your goals are. Why are you doing this? Are you doing it to get famous? Are you doing it to be validated? What are your goals? And then I want you to rethink those goals. If it's all about me, what am I going to get from it? You're going to have a hard time. It should be an act of joy and an act of giving, as well as what you're going to get. If you're not getting anything back in your heart from it, it's going to be a hard slog. Think about what will happen, what will have to happen for you to consider this a success. Write it all down. Do a business plan for your podcast. What am I looking at? How many downloads? What else is it going to do for me? And I'll talk about that later. How are you going to make yours stand out? When you do any kind of business plan, it's why now, why this book or this podcast or this program? Why you? How is it different? How is it going to stack up? So if you were to do a podcast on leadership, you're going to search on the leadership podcast and look at everything that everyone's got going on. It's pretty amazing. How is yours going to be different? If you don't think of that now, if you don't understand what your niche is and who you want to serve, and if you don't evolve that content, that strategy, you don't want to just stay static. I've evolved over a lot of years: career coaching, leadership training, executive coaching. I've done spiritual work. I've done, live your true spirit. I've done a lot of stuff, and I evolve it. I hone it. What is feeding me now? What is right for me now? What's the niche? So think about that and think about how you're going to make yours stand apart, and what value will you give and what value will you derive. Don't launch this thing till you have this pretty well mapped out. I've also looked at and thought about, why do podcasts fail? And there's a great article. Stephen Spencer, I think is his name. The link is below. Why do podcasts fail? One, they don't have a replicable formula, meaning what are you offering every week? And it needs to be regular. And this is true of any thought leader. If you have a newsletter, but you don't write to people except once a month or once every 3 months, and they don't know when it's coming, forget it. It needs to be consistent and replicable. So you're going to have guests that fill this niche, that fit that niche. It can't be dog sitting one day, knitting one day, herbal supplements one day. It's got to hold together, and you've got to be able to replicate it. Another reason podcasts fail is they're pitching too hard. They're pushing too hard. So I'm going to share my little pet peeve. I don't want to be sold to when I'm listening to content. That so turns me off. Don't get me wrong. I do, free webinars, and they funnel to programs. And my belief is my job is to give you content that moves you forward, that creates breakthrough. That's my job. Now, at the end, I certainly will do a little pitch, but I try to keep it brief. I try to be respectful. But if you're on the call with me, you're on the podcast, you're probably interested in something else I'm offering. So of course I'll give a little pitch. But I have listened to podcasts, webinars, free webinar, 60 minutes, and the whole damn thing is a sell job. I can't stand that. And it's not going to be successful, people. You have to think long and hard about how you're going to pitch and push. And frankly, pitching and pushing, I don't think belongs in an information program, except in a limited way that it's not intrusive, it's not offensive, it doesn't make you want to go take a shower afterwards. Giving up too easily and quickly. This is what I think happens. I think I read somewhere that many podcasts end after the 7th episode. They just can't keep going. Well, if you really want to do this, you got to push through the hard stuff. And there is hard stuff. If you're going to record every week, I spoke to, John Lee Dumas, big podcaster, a while ago, years ago. And, he batches his stuff. So on one day, he'll do quite a number of recordings. That doesn't work for me. I get tired. And to me, it's like you're on. It's performing. You can't just slog to your desk and do it. I mean, he's very high energy. He seems to have no problem with it. I can't do that. So I have to plan it very planfully. I have to schedule it planfully. If there are too many in one day, I move one. But the point is, there are days you show up to do it and you're tired. In fact, I have a cup of coffee right here. Hitting 100 episodes is a lot of work, but you don't want to give up. You have to have perseverance and commitment. What do you commit to here? Don't give up. Another reason podcasts fail is the quality is poor. Either the recording equipment isn't what it needs to be, it's hard to hear, you can't access it on devices, or the content itself is not at a high level and people aren't going to listen. And number 5 is boring content. I mean, we all know. We all give something about 3 seconds, right? If I'm reading something now, if it doesn't have headers and break up the content so that it's digestible, I'm out. I can't read. I can't process hundreds of pages of content without a way to digest it, a kind of, what do you call it? Formatting that makes it easy to digest. I think that's really true of podcasts too. We're not going to sit there and be bored. So think about all of these things as you are planning for it. Really create a business plan for it. Lesson number 2, know what makes a great podcast and hone and update your strategy. So, we're talking about boring versus great content. So what makes a great podcast? And I sure hope you all think this one is. But what I do try to do is make it different and interesting, but still within a unified theme. So, it's called Finding Brave. And that I work with professionals who want more, different, or better. So to me, it's got to be within the realm of helping professionals do that, build a happier career, make a difference that they want to, come forward, close their power gaps. And so the theme for me is, how do we do that? And how is that done? Through finding brave every day. So the guests that I love have a message about that. Either they've done it, or they've overcome incredible odds, or they have an incredible story, a personal riveting story, or their content is so inspiring and motivating, or, it could be as simple as, I read their book or I read their post and fell off my chair. It's what interests me. And what I realize is, and I learned this when I was in market research a lot of years ago, 20 years ago in the corporate world, and I listened to my first focus group moderator who said, everybody's idea has value because each of you represents thousands like you. Ooh, I will never forget that. And that's really true. What I found is if I'm really interested in it, thousands are interested in it. That's what I see because of the following that I have and the people I hear from. So, another thing that makes not boring content and good content, I think, is it's not just me talking. It's not just me every episode talking. Now, I know some podcasts do this. I don't find that engaging too much. Even if it's a celebrity that I really admire, I want to hear I want to hear them converse. I want to hear them talking to someone else. What makes them interested in someone else, and what are they tuning into when they're talking to someone else? So for me, it's not just me talking head; it's conversation, not overly promotional. Another way to make sure your content is good is ask your audience, how are you liking this? What do I need to do differently? What topics do you want? And, I was a marketing person. So numbers, uh, I don't make decisions without numbers. And it's very clear after 20 episodes um, who's downloading what, which ones are most popular. Now, sometimes when you're doing Facebook promotions or whatever on an episode, you're going to get a spike, and that's not going to be necessarily organic feedback. But look at the numbers. Oh, they really loved this one on leading. They loved this one on narcissism. They loved this one on life purpose, but they didn't really like this. Now, sometimes there's an important enough topic that you're going to talk about it, even though maybe it doesn't have the widest appeal. But do this consciously. Look at the numbers. Ask your audience, what are the topics you're desperate to know more about? Don't just do this in a vacuum. Ooh, I think this will be fun. Ask the people that you're serving. Yep, and look at the numbers. My platform is Libsyn, and they have amazing stats there. I'm looking at all sorts of things all the time. Okay. Lesson number 3, pick your podcast partners and all business partners very, very carefully. I cannot emphasize this enough. I've been burned in the 15 years of doing this work. As an entrepreneur, small business owner, I've been burned in my corporate life. Who you partner with is going to shape the whole experience. Don't do this on a whim. Don't just meet someone and go, yeah, let's do a podcast together. Don't do that. It's a business endeavor. And good partners are going to stay with you a long time. Um, and I would say on the flip side, it's very hard to extricate from the wrong partner. And there can be the wrong partner for a lot of different reasons. And this is people that help you, like your podcast editor. It's people who work with you, for you. It's people that you do the podcast with. It's your guests. I can tell you in 100 episodes, I don't know how many have been solo of me, just me speaking, maybe 7. The vast majority of people I've chosen to interview are so amazing and so giving. And so I'm so grateful. Like, one who comes to mind is John Maxwell, who's, the top leadership expert in the country by a number of awarded that by a number of top organizations. And what a doll, and what an amazing person. At the end of it, we hung up from the call, and he said, I'm a friend now. What can I do for you? Oh, but I'll be really honest, a few of the guests are not like that. It's all about them. They don't really want to talk to you. They don't really want to converse. They just are about getting their PR out. And I really don't want that. I don't want podcast guests like that. But sometimes you make a mistake. But I'm asking you to be very judicious on anybody you partner with, anyone that's trying to get away from the sun here in my screen. Anyone that's going to help you, because their energy is going to color your energy and the energy of this project. If you've gotten involved with someone in the podcast planning or editing or social media sharing or guests or whatever it is that are negative, are narcissistic, it's going to come out. So choose the right people to be with you on this journey, because it is a journey of growth. Lesson 4. Just because you have famous people on the show doesn't mean you'll grow your audience. Are you ready to be a thought leader? So I have lots to talk about here. I still see it very, very regularly. When I was just starting out as a coach, so 15 years ago, um, you know what I heard constantly? Here's how you get a huge following. Do a summit where you have 20 people who are famous, who have a big list, and have them be a part of your training summit. So let's say you're going to talk about career change. Okay, you'll get Kathy and 9 other people, and they have a big list, 50,000 people or 10,000 people. Make sure they have a certain size list. Make sure that they agree to promote this for you, and woohoo, you'll have 50,000 new people on your list. And off you go to the races. None of that is accurate. None of that is accurate. Email response rates, email sign up rates have plummeted. Just because you have 10 people who have a huge list doesn't mean they'll become part of your list. And what are you going to do when you serve them anyway? What are you going to do to serve them once you have these new people on your list? Once your summit is done, what are you going to do for these people? If you don't have great content, what are you going to do with these new signups? None of this is right yet. I'm literally asked, I'm not going to exaggerate, maybe 10 times a month to do these kinds of summits with people that probably just find my name and say, you're doing great work. Will you join my summit? These are not the ways to build thought leadership. This doesn't work. I really don't. I really when you don't have a following and you don't have content and then you do this summit and then disappear, it doesn't work. Well, I think in some ways the same thing is with a podcast. Um, yeah, you might know a few celebrities, you might know a few influencers, so you get them on the show. But if your show isn't good, if you can't continually deliver great stuff, it doesn't matter. It's like my book, which was good, Breakdown Breakthrough. It appeared in Wall Street Journal, featured, big feature. Did it? Did I become an Amazon bestseller? No, because that doesn't necessarily translate into um, downloads or purchases, right? Great content doesn't necessarily mean what you're hoping it's going to mean, that all of a sudden you're going to have a million followers. So, are you ready to be a thought leader? And a thought leader, even the show Barstool that I've heard a little, these people are fascinating to listen to, and they have a lot to say. So I call them thought leaders. I don't mean it in the formal sense of the word that you have to be a best-selling author, but you have to have someone that leads with your thought, that has something interesting to say, that is not saying the same thing. And, I have a lot of resources on what it is to be a thought leader and what it isn't. And we're linking below to my page, kathycaprino.com/thought leadership. But I did do a post and a really fun interview with Jason Miller, who at the time, and I think he still is the co-founder of Peaceful Media, a really great marketing agency for top thought leaders. And we talked about wannabes versus real thought leaders. So go to that page and read the article and watch the webinar. It's fun. He's so interesting and enlivening and funny. But I have come up with 10 questions to help you determine if you're truly a thought leader. And maybe you're not rocking it on all of these levels, and that's okay. But if you have none of these, I think that's going to be a challenge for you to have content that's going to grab people and hold them. Question number 1, have I developed a clear model for change and a well-articulated, teachable point of view that I'm able to take people through? Or am I just showing up? Okay. Number 2, is this model for change tested in research? Now, you don't need that for a podcast per se, but you do need some well-defined ideas, right? You can't just show up and have nothing going on about what you're presenting, right? Number 3, have I done the inner work with myself and on myself to understand my true motives for wanting to do this? So, why is it that you want a successful podcast? Is it to be of help, or is it to feel better? Is it to vindicate yourself? What is it? Do you know why? Because you got to look at those reasons. Number 4, am I undergoing a process of stretching myself every day? Um, or am I still afraid of getting out there? If you feel insecure about doing this, if you feel like, I don't know if I'm good enough or smart enough to even do this, it's going to show up in the results. So have you done the work to say, look, I might not be the smartest person in the world or the top thought leader, but boy, I have something to say. And you're confident in that. Number 5, do I care about moving the needle on this topic? So if your topic is marketing, digital marketing, if your topic is design, if your topic is career coaching, if your topic is management, do you care about moving the needle forward here? If so, what has to happen? What do you have to be talking about to make a difference in that area? Number 6, do I incorporate and build on other people's thought leadership? You know, there's a lot of narcissism in the media, meaning people think they know it all. And, I had a little of that when I wrote my first book, Breakdown Breakthrough, 10 years ago. I really thought I know everything there is about challenge for women in the professional world. How ridiculous. I didn't. And one great top editor said to me, editorial consultant Janet Goldstein, she said, look, you got a great idea here, but this is not it yet. You need to do research. And I thought, what does she mean I need to do research? What is she talking about? What kind of research? And I cried. I remember we had a meeting in the Algonquin Hotel in New York City. I left, I cried in the middle of the street in New York. But the next day I'm driving to my therapy practice and it occurred to me, oh, I actually know what she means. I used to do market research. Why don't I research 100 women across the country who aren't my friends, so it's not going to be a self-selected pool, who can say that they've faced professional crisis and overcome it. Let me just learn. And oh my gosh, that was a year of learning. And what I saw was how much I had to learn. So, do you build on other people's knowledge? Number 7, am I addressing my emotional fears and challenges about being seen, challenged, and critiqued? Because when you show up, let me tell you, you're going to get critiqued. You're going to get your ass kicked. You're going to, I don't get that on the podcast at all, but I have gotten it on Forbes. You don't know anything. Shut up, you dumb C word. Oh, I've been, you get your ass pummeled when you're saying something, and they all say, if you're not getting pushback, if you're not perturbing somebody, you're not really saying anything of value. But are you ready for that? Not everybody's going to love you. Boy, is that true. Number 8, am I willing to be of service 100 different ways and 100 times longer than I expected before I ever receive one iota of recognition or money? You've got to be of service here. Number 9, do I regularly ask for feedback, critique, and help and constructive criticism? Am I continuing to get it and incorporate it? And 10, is there evidence that my work and ideas have a positive impact? Finally, ask yourself, is this work I can't not do? So is this podcast the thing I cannot not do? Then do it. Do it, do it, do it. All right, lesson number 5 here. I went way over here in time. Does it enliven you and give you joy and value to do this? So let's talk for a minute about money. A lot of people think it's going to be easy to monetize. Well, it isn't. I can tell you that. And I'm sharing a great article on castos.com. I think that's how you pronounce it, on how you can monetize. You can sell ads, you can get sponsorships, you can sell premium episodes, you can create YouTube video snippets from the show, you can repurpose and sell that content, you can do all that. There's a lot of ways. For me personally, the podcast monetizes because I get speaking gigs, I get coaching clients, I get executive clients, I get workshops from it. And that monetizes in a much bigger way than YouTube ads would for me. And the podcast is a great way for people to see you in action. They hear you. They can tell what they're going to get if they hire you for $15,000 to speak. So that's how it monetizes for me. I am, now that we're at the 100th episode and it's kind of rocking, moving along, I am going to pursue some sponsorships. I just did one today, reaching out to providers and platforms that I love and would be happy to do a little pitch, short little ad, at the end or in the middle of the podcast that I would really feel good about. I'm pursuing that. But there's a lot of ways for you to get value above and beyond monetizing, but there are great ways to monetize too. But don't, gosh, I got to tell you a story. I don't take ads on my Kathy Caprino site or my Finding Brave site right now, but I dabbled in it, and we hired a Google ad partner, all legit. We had to upload a new cloud platform. Holy cow. We choose the categories of ads we want and don't want, and rocking and rolling. Well, it slowed my site down tremendously, and I'm not kidding. I look one day at Finding Brave, and I see an ad for beautiful Chinese women. I literally almost fell off my chair. My high blood pressure went through the roof. I call my guy. I said, "What the hell is this?" And he lackadaisically said, "Sorry, we somehow didn't uncheck a category of ads for you." I said, "Take the whole thing down. Take it down. I cannot have that." You know, can you imagine? So for me, I am very careful about the content on my site. And I, at this juncture, am not able to control the ads in the way that I want to. It does not work for me. It may work for you perfectly, but we all have our different approach. I'm going to monetize things very differently. I can't have ads that are against my values and against everything I believe running on my website. So think about it. So think about how you want to monetize it, what's right for you. Don't listen to all the gurus that are saying you're going to make $1 million from this. Don't get duped, because there's a lot of marketing, podcast marketers, webinar marketers that are duping you. They're making money off of our naivete. Make sure that this thing feeds your heart, feeds your soul. Yes, feed your business, of course. You want there to be a return on investment, but make sure it's an amazing experience for you that is sustainable, that you're going to love doing, that's going to move the needle, that it's going to enrich you. And understand that it's a business venture, but also it's a venture from your heart, and pursue it that way. And I really want to encourage you. I hope this hasn't discouraged you. I hope this has helped you have eyes wide open about what's involved, so that you can have it be an incredible success that you're so proud of, like I am of Finding Brave. And, really, where there's a will, there's a way, and where you're open to understanding what's involved and you're ready for that, why can't you have an incredible success with your podcast? I'd love to hear what you think. I'd love to hear what other topics you want to learn about. I'd love to hear if you have any questions from this. I would really love to hear from you. And thank you for making this show, because without you, there is no show. And helping me celebrate the 100th anniversary, 100th episode, not anniversary, good grief, 100th episode. And here's to you having an incredibly wonderful, successful time launching and running your podcast. Okay, everybody, have a fantastic week. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.